Hi guys, this is Melissa from the House of Plaid Fuzz. If you're new, welcome to my channel. And if you are already a subscriber, then this video is going to be a little bit different than what I've done in the past. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the books I've been reading lately. I'm a pretty avid reader, but I used to do a lot of reading reviews for my blog and things like that. And I just got really burned out last year. So in 2017, I decided I was going to read only for pleasure. I was not going to read any, reviews for the blog. I was not going to be reading a bunch of business self-help books unless, it was something I generally just wanted to read. And I didn't set a goal or anything. I know a lot of people wanted to read 100 books this year or whatever. But I didn't want to set any sort of expectation like that on it because I wanted to get back to reading for fun because I've always loved reading, and yeah, I was just totally burned out. So far this year, I've actually read 35 books. I'm on my 35th book right now. And I have been tracking them in my bullet journal. I also keep track on Goodreads, so I will leave the link to my Goodreads account below if you like to use it and want to follow me there. I read the first 28 books from January through May, and then I read nothing for most of May and then all of June and July because my stepsons were here, and honestly I just try to kind of be present with my kids during the summer, and they run me ragged busy, so I just didn't have time. But the boys left, and my daughter here at home is 16 years old, so I have some time to myself now. She's fairly self-sufficient. So I've been reading a lot more. So in the month of August, I have read, well, I'm on my 6th book, I guess. So I thought I would just kind of go over and show you what I've been reading and if it's something I would recommend you read or not. So this first book that I'm going to show you, this is the only actual book I've read that was not on my Kindle, and I will talk about that a little bit. But this is Dot Journaling by Rachel Wilkerson Miller, and this was sent to me for free by the publisher to review, which I know I said I wasn't going to review anything, but I mean, it's about, bullet journaling. It's not, nothing too heavy, so I thought this would be fun to look through. This book, if you've been interested in bullet journaling, but it seems overwhelming because, honestly, you see all these people on Instagram or kind of these famous bullet journalers, and they're professional artists. And if that just seems overwhelming and you don't know where to start, this is a great book for you. She goes through all of the basics of how to set up a bullet journal, the supplies a dot journal, the supplies you would want to use. And what I really like about this book is there are really great pictures all throughout that show her actual journal. And she has a really nice style. It's very simple, it's very achievable, but it's pretty, and that's important. You have to have cute things to plan with or you won't use them, in my opinion. But she goes through, ideas for different spreads and shows examples of all that. I mean, just tons and tons of ideas in here. It gives you different options. Do you want to set up, a single page spread or, a grid and a mini calendar? So, I mean, this just breaks it all the way down. And she shows you what she does, and I she tells you what supplies she likes, where to get them. It's just a very accessible, easy read, and I don't know, I just the pictures are pretty, and it's just kind of one of those books you want to pick up and read, and it kind of inspires you to get going in your own journal. So like I said, I mean, I've been bullet journaling for a long time, and I feel it has evolved. What most people call a bullet journal is not the original concept. It's really evolved into just kind of an art journal meets a planner. And I just feel this would kind of help you find your voice in that. And it's kind of cool. There's actually some dot grid pages in the back you can practice in. So Like I said, that was dot journaling. If that's something you've been interested in, I would definitely recommend you pick up a copy of that. So the rest of my books are on my Kindle Paperwhite. I want to talk about this a little bit just because I feel like so many people don't like reading like on a Kindle. And I was always that person. I've had regular Kindles, I've had an iPad, and I didn't like reading on them at all. I've always been one of those people, like I like the feel of a real book in my hand. You know, I like seeing them on my bookshelf. But getting a Paperwhite really was like a real book killer for me. I actually, I hope lightning doesn't strike me, prefer reading on this to reading a real book. I have this cover on it that's got the like just snap closure. I can hear my dogs like galloping around the house, so if you can hear that, I'm sorry. It's just my dogs literally galloping. They're like 7 pounds, but sounds a little larger than that. Anywho, so I like, this is how I usually hold it when I read. So it's really easy to hold in my hand. I like that it looks like I'm, you know, a book page. It's pretty easy on my eyes. I think it is anyway. This past week or two that I've been reading so much, I've been having like horrible migraines. So now I have an appointment at the eye doctor. Another nice feature though is that you can drastically increase the size of the print. Maybe I need to do that. But anyway, long story short, I mean, I understand people that say that they need actual books, but if you've not tried a Kindle Paperwhite, I don't know. Like I said, this was an actual book killer for me, and I probably have less than 20 physical books that I own now, which is kind of, that's very out of character for me. So yeah, there's my thoughts. Judge away if you're an actual book person. But anyway, on to the books I've been reading. The first book I read was dot journaling. The second one was The Magic of Ordinary Days. I feel like that's one of those books everyone but me had heard of, and it was something that like Amazon had suggested to me based on other things I'd read. My favorite genre, I guess, to read is historical fiction, and I particularly like the World War II era. And so that's when this takes place, and it's a unmarried pregnant woman goes out west to marry like basically mail order bride, to kind of save her the shame that was not, you know, really acceptable back then. And she married, you know, like this lonely farmer, and he wasn't serving in the war because farmers were important. And it was an interesting book. I read it pretty quickly. I felt like the characters were a little flat, but there were some really interesting, there was a few interesting plot twists. But then I felt like at the end, like they hurried up and tried to wrap it up. So I would probably give that one about maybe 3.5 stars out of 5. Like, I mean, it wasn't terrible by any stretch, but not my favorite book I've ever read. You know, so the next one I read was Heart's Safe Passage. And this was one I just kind of grabbed on a whim. I get most of my books from the library, from their digital collection. And so it's really hit and miss. They don't have great descriptions of things. So I was just kind of browsing historical fiction, and I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. And it's a Christian like romance novel. And it's about what you would expect from a Christian romance novel. And I don't mean to like knock that genre if you like reading that style of book. I mean, it held my interest. I finished it, but it was not the best written book ever. The plot was very like, I don't want to say stupidly predictable, but you know, it was, yeah. I can't say I'll be picking up anymore by that same author, but like I said, if you like some, you know, that genre of book, you know, like I said, I finished it, so it wasn't totally unreadable. The one I read after that was A Gentleman in Moscow. And I'd heard a lot about this book. I didn't know like what it was about. I just knew a lot of people were reading it. And I had actually put it on my Kindle like earlier this summer, and then obviously never got around to reading it. So I picked it back up again. And this also takes place in it takes place in Russia, obviously, and it's like when the communists are starting to take over, and like the main character is a count, and it just kind of chronicles, you know, they were eliminating the classes and things of that nature, and he had published a poem that the government didn't like, so they sentenced him to house arrest in this really opulent hotel where he lived. And only, you know, he wasn't allowed to live in like the nice suites anymore, and it literally just chronicles his entire life, you know, living in this hotel. And like it took me a while to get into the book, which is good because it was a really long book, but like I loved it. Like once I finally like got kind of invested in the story, it was really good. Very well written. The characters were very well developed, super interesting, and like I really like when books kind of intertwine historical fact without overrunning the plot. I don't know if that makes any sense, but super good book. Definitely would recommend that one. There were a few parts of the book that got a little bit monotonous. I found myself skimming a little bit, but overall that was one of those books, like, you know, when you get done you're just like almost afraid to read anything else, and because it's not going to be of the same caliber. So that one I really liked. The next book I read was called All the Light We Cannot See, and that one I picked up because it was recommended if you liked A Gentleman in Moscow. And that one is also takes place in the World War II era. I've got a theme going. I said that's not always the only thing I read, but lately, yeah, it is. And it follows the story of a girl in France who is blind, around the time like when the Germans occupy France, and just, you know, they had to flee Paris, and kind of the experience of living through that, being visually impaired. And it was really good. I felt like at the end, I don't want to spoil it. I was like, I ugly cried at the end. Like it ended kind of how it had to end, but you didn't want it to end that way, if it makes sense. So I liked that book. It was not, you know, I probably liked A Gentleman in Moscow a little bit better, but like that was a pretty worthy book to follow it up with. And then I read The Orphan's Tale, and I picked that one up because they said if you liked like Water for Elephants, you would like that book, which I did like Water for Elephants. And I can see why they would recommend that. It's also set like in the circus. This is set again around World War II. I know you're shocked. And it's a circus in Germany. Well, it takes place from the perspective of two different women. One of them was born into a circus, a Jewish family that owned a circus. And then she ended up marrying a German officer. She wanted to get out of the circus. Well then, you know, as Hitler rose to power and all this and that, he made all of the German officers who were married to Jewish women go home and divorce their wives. So her husband divorced her. She went to try to go back to her family, couldn't find them, they disbanded. So she met up with this other circus who basically like took her in and hid her. And then the other woman's perspective is like, I think she was like 17. I think she was a Danish girl who got pregnant out of wedlock. Her family kicked her out. She was like earning her keep on a train cleaning. And basically on the train, like the Nazis had a whole train car of like babies and infants going to the gas chamber, and there was one that was still alive, so she rescued him and took off, and the circus ends up finding her, so she has to become a performer to earn her keep. And it's not, again, not the best book I've ever read, but it was really interesting. I don't know, like, if it was written like after Water for Elephants. Like, it felt a little bit, I don't want to say like a ripoff, but I don't know. It wasn't as satisfying of a read. And I kind of feel like I don't know. The characters were a little bit flat, but it was very interesting. I think especially in light of some of the current events, it did kind of go into some of the reality of what Jewish people in that time faced. It was, yeah. And the ending was kind of, I don't know. But anyway, it was a good book. I think if you liked Water for Elephants, I think it would be worth your time to read. Let's put it that way. And the final book, which I am reading now, I'm about halfway through, is Of Mess and Moxie by Jen Hatmaker. If you've never heard of Jen Hatmaker, she is like a Christian women's speaker, author. She's written quite a few books, and I've read, I think almost, if not all of her other books, almost all of her other books. And I've read them, like been on launch teams and for reviews and things like that. And like, well, they've been good. I don't know if I'm like I feel like this is her best book. I don't know if that's just because like I'm reading it because I want to read it, or if it's because it just speaks to me at the season of life I'm in. Like basically she has written this book for women who are in the middle of their lives. And I'm 36 years old, so you know, I'm right there. And it's really like, what the chapter that really hit me just talks about, like, you're not stuck where you used to be. Like, you can change, you can evolve, and that's okay. And it's like, you know, if you were really into something before, or if you were really wrong about something before, like, that doesn't have to brand you for the rest of your life, basically. And like, she talks about how, you know, as a mom, like, you're doing okay, and just kind of basically chill out, you know, like, like it's gonna be all right. And I guess, I don't know, maybe that's a message that I needed to hear. But this book just came out the other day, and I bought it right away when it came out. And like I said, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like slog through it, just because sometimes I do with that style of book. But I've like flown through it so far, and it's like I said, it's really good. I feel like it's her best book yet. So if you like want to read something inspirational, or you know, if you're a Jen Hatmaker fan, I would definitely recommend picking that book up. So that is my 35th book. That's where I'm at so far. If you are reading something good or have read something good lately, please let me know in the comments section below, because I'm always on the hunt for what I'm going to read next. I feel like sometimes I waste more time looking for a good book than actually reading. So let me know. I'm going to leave some links below. I'm going to link to all of the books that I've mentioned here, so you can find them on Amazon. And I'm also going to link a blog post that I did about how to find books for free. Because like I mentioned, I do buy books here and there, like, don't get me wrong, but 99% of what I read, I either check out from the library or, you know, get for free. Because I couldn't read as voraciously as I do if I was paying for all these books like this. I just don't have that kind of a book budget, unfortunately. So I will link that below. And I'll link, you know, all my social media and all that good stuff. So if you would like to see more videos like this, please let me know. I love to read. I love talking about it. So if you'd be interested to hear maybe, you know, like once a month what I'm reading, let me know. So if you don't already subscribe to my channel, please go ahead and hit that red subscribe button so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.